So we're learning Tanya. We're in the middle of page 126, chapter 44 in Tanya. It's the third lesson on this chapter. With God's help, we'll finish tomorrow. The Balatanya here discussed yesterday a very interesting type of a love for God, one that's called Kibro Dishtadl Boser Aviv Ime, quoting the Zohar, like a son who does whatever needs to be done, including self-sacrifice for his parent. And the Alter Rebbe kind of gave us a buzzword to refer to this love as the love of Avinu. There is the love of Chayenu, of life, and there's love for our Father. And the difference is, Chayenu, as much of a value that it is, that we come to realize that God is the force of our life, and all there is in the world is God Almighty. Because whatever happens, it's from God. Whether it's good or perceived no good, whatever the case, it's from God. Nevertheless, one exchanges, like some have said about another concept, one taiva for another taiva. First, I had a desire, a lust for women. I had a lust for money. I had a lust for pleasures. And I came to a conclusion, I'm wasting my time. Because it's here today and gone tomorrow. So now, what am I going to do? I'm going to exchange that lust, that desire, that taiva, for a higher, more sophisticated or refined taiva called God. What's my perception of God is that he gives me life. That means I'm important and I exist and I count and I know something. So the love of ki chayenu, which we called earlier nafshi v'ticha balayla, my soul thirsts, lusts for you at night, in the classical language of King Solomon, of a love story, right? I want you at night. Why do I want you at night? I don't want you at day. Why do you emphasize I want you at all times? Because night represents darkness and problems and misery. Solve my misery at night. Wow, you're going to solve my misery. Now that type of a love, both in the physical and in the spiritual, sure, which we're talking about here, we're not talking about the physical. That type of a love, it's a very powerful one, but yet it's exchanging one desire for another desire. You never leave the world of desire. And you think about it, Chevra, think about it. In other words, it's like someone saying, why should I become a Baal Teshuvah? Why should I stop eating pork and non-kosher and put on tefillin and everything else? You know why? Because it's a better life. The world of Torah, the world of religion, the world of spirituality. You'll stay out of trouble. You won't get illnesses, and you'll be more a refined person. So it's a no-brainer. That type of analysis is very much part of life, but it's limited. It's limited to the I, to the yesh. In other words, it's pleasuring myself, not with the physical material. It's pleasuring myself with the spiritual, but I'm still pleasuring myself. The love of ki'ato avinu that a child has for a parent, where he's willing to do anything or everything, or a girl for a parent, a child for a parent, it goes beyond existence. Even if I die, I do it for my parent. You know, I grew up with a mother was a Holocaust survivor. Okay, grandparents were a Holocaust family, and my mother, I heard it from her so many times. When we got sick, a cold, she would say, "I wish I would have it and you wouldn't have it." Of course. And that was common, common. And I mean, like, look how it sticks in my head now in my 60s, and it's like I hear it today from my mother. She's passed on already 16 to 18 years, I forget now. Right? In other words, yeah. In other words, the the self-sacrifice now that was a parent to a child, my mother to us. Now imagine the right Torah attitude, a child to a parent, which unfortunately today we're missing, because kids have only complaints against their parents. They'll sit around and badmouth their mother and their father, and meanwhile they came from their union. You wouldn't be here, you low life. You're only here because of them. So where's your respect? But it's a lost art. It's a lost art. I'm talking about myself too. My respect for parents compared to my mother's is nothing. It's a shanda, a shame. Why? Because I'm an American spoiled brat, okay? And she came out of the shtetl, out of the cradle, out of the Holocaust. My mother, when my grandmother was already in her 80s and had dementia and, was going downhill, so she slept right here where I'm teaching you, right over here. I see the couch, except we have a new couch, but the position of the couch, where the couch was there, she would sleep sometimes on the couch. My mother would lay down on the floor so in case my grandmother falls down, she should fall on top of her. And that's where she slept for the night. On the floor, so that her mother, in case she rolls off the couch, she should fall on top of her. No. Did I ever do that? I should never have to do it. My father should be well. But you understand the idea. So let's go back to what he's saying in Tanya. The love of a child's self-sacrifice is dismissing and leaving the yesh, the I. It's not the exchange of one pleasure for another pleasure, a physical material pleasure for a spiritual pleasure. It's to vacate pleasure. If there's anything in pleasure that's associated with the I, i.e. the ism, get away from it. You don't want it. That's really bad. Why is it bad? It's spiritual pleasure. But spiritual pleasure is still pleasure that you pleasure yourself. And a Jew has to come to a point, one second, that the pleasure they have from a piece of meat on Shabbos, or a union that's a holy union, etc., should not be to pleasure himself, but to pleasure to have God be expressed through that pleasure. And there shouldn't be an iota of your pleasure in it. It should be God's pleasure that's pleasuring you. Now you'll say, well, who can...
How's that possible today?
Okay, hold on. Don't throw stones at me yet. I got it. Mute yourself, please. How's that possible? You have to review the last 43 chapters in Tanya. It is possible. It's not possible in the microcosm. It's possible in the macrocosm. It's possible in every little area in your life. In one area in your life to develop such a feeling if you work at it. If you don't work at it, you're right, it's impossible. It is possible. It is possible. The question is whether we really want it. We all know when we really want something, nothing can stop us. Nothing. So the question is if you have the will. If there's a will, there's a way, Yaini. If you have the ratzon. And most of us don't have the ratzon at all times. And if we have the ratzon once in a while at a certain spiritual, godly path, Torah path, we're way ahead. So this 1 second, Yaini, let me speak and later. This is the love that the Alter Rebbe calls here, kihu avinu, right? Not that kihu chayenu. Moshe, kihu chayenu is God is our life. That's the lower level. That's the nafshi v'sicha. The level, the one we're talking about, the higher one is the kihu chayenu, kihu avinu, which is self-sacrifice. Now the Alter Rebbe, on page 126, is going to further elucidate this idea and then teach us more about it. So I want to learn inside. Look at page, we are, we're at the fourth line after the period, the middle of the line. The Alter Rebbe says that we have to accustom ourselves for it to be on our mouth and through our voice. And he says when we train ourselves in this way, second nature becomes habit, or becomes our habit becomes our nature. And although it seems to the person, it's a fan.
Where are we holding?
We're holding right now. We're on the 5th line on page 126 from the top. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
I have us on Samach Dalet towards the bottom.
Totally wrong. Samach Dalet at the bottom is the end of it's the end of the chapter. What are you you mean
like 4 or 5 lines before the end of the 4 or 5 lines before the end of the chapter?
No way. No way. Okay, please go back to 126, the 5th line. And even though it appears to him, it's a fantasy. That's what Yoini asked. Who's holding by it? It's a fantasy. Says the Balatanya, the language that he used in chapter 31 as well. Lo yichosh. Menashe, you know what lo yichosh means? Don't be concerned. Why not? Since from your perspective, Isser, it's true what you're doing. You really mean it. If on its own it's true, it comes from the hidden love in the heart. Therefore, it's fine. However, for it to come out to fruition in a manifested state, it should be practical, which should lead to that you should study Torah mitzvahs with this feeling, so that will help you serve God like a child who serves his father, to give him pleasure, satisfaction, nachas, that he does that. And therefore the Chazal say, the Gemara says, Chazal say, when one has a thought, a good thought, Hashem combines the thought with the action. The issue is like this. In the Gemara it says, if someone had a thought of putting on tefillin, but guess what? He didn't get around to putting on tefillin. So if you learn the Gemara says the machshavah tova, the thought itself, somehow is as though you put on tefillin. So the question is, what do you mean? He didn't put on tefillin. I can have all the good thoughts in the world. I didn't do it. So the Alter Rebbe in chapter 16 of Tanya already explained, and it's also based on Mefarshim, that it means that he did do it. He did do it, but it was lacking kavanah. So what Hashem will do is, if you have the good thought of kavanah, he'll make the maisa, the action, be as though there was kavanah with it, but not that you didn't do it at all. Yeah. So that's what he says. But and therefore, this mitzvah that seems to you to be stale, boring, empty, unenthused, and therefore should not soar on high and should remain just below and not go anywhere, and you feel like, I didn't daven today. I didn't learn today, but you learned Daf Yomi. I don't know what I was talking about. Even I knew my heart was there. I was thinking about the bank. I was thinking about sports. And I was thinking about the stock market. I was all over the place. Am I picking up my kids and everything else? You sat and learned. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is going to combine the machshava and kavanah to your actions. Just do it. The best thing is to do the kavanah. You should have to, but if you missed, right, that's what we're saying. So he says this. Nachas ruach, this pleasure that God has from your action, kimoshel, it's comparable, and we learned this earlier in Tanya as well. Simchas hamelech bibnoi, the joy that a king has of his son, sheboel of bidseisoi mebeiso asurin canal, who comes to him after leaving jail. What a nachas! My son was stuck in jail. My son is stuck in Gaza. And he comes home even if he doesn't say anything and he doesn't share much, you are so happy. He's here. He's left jail. Even if he's going back to jail. But right now he's there. Right? Don't think about the future. Live with the present. The Alter Rebbe says the present is that when you put on them, you do a mitzvah, that mitzvah is wholesome. That mitzvah is gewaldig. What's going to be tomorrow? Am I going to repeat the mitzvah? Am I going to be inspired? I don't know. But it shouldn't matter to you. This is the answer why Chabad emphasizes put on tefillin even just one time. But why? He's living with a shiksa. He's eating treif. He's not putting on tefillin tomorrow. You schlep him into a mitzvah-mobile on 47th Street or 5th Avenue, Manhattan, or at the Kaisel, whatever else, and you put tefillin on with him one time. Here's the answer. Because you cause the nachas ruach for Hashem. Is it about you, or is it about God? If it's about God, God says, this turns me on. I get nachas, pleasure, from one-time tefillin. Don't tell me about the future. That's another association. That's another mindset. It's another conversation. And it's an important one, right? But right now. So that's what Alter Rebbe says. This is comparable to a son of a king who's been let out of jail, and the parents have such nachas when the child returns and comes home from jail. Another parable, another mashal. Or when you make a dwelling place for God. Imagine Hashem comes into your house today. You're related. How long is it going to be there? Someone says to your neighbor, how long is God going to be by you, your guest? I don't know. It shouldn't concern you how long. He's here now. Live with the present. God is here now. And if we put the focus on the now, the dira b'tachtonim that we're making for Hashem, the Alter Rebbe says, this is genuine ava. The fact that this ava might not last, and the fact that there might be obstructions to the ava later on, who cares now? Right now, you're being emes, you're honest, you mean it, you really mean it, you're in. What'll be tomorrow? What'll be tomorrow? We'll deal with tomorrow. Let's continue. The previous mentioned love called the love of the soul thirst for God. It's very close to a person, to bring it out, to reveal it, from the concealed to the revealed, by constantly training the mouth and the heart to have this feeling. I just want to point out to you, some of you have studied and are involved with Breslev. In Breslev Hasidus, this idea of talking to Hashem is very much a staple, The whole idea of Isboidedus. In Chabad, we don't find that emphasis. We find the emphasis on Hisboininus, meditation or reflection. In Tanya, in certain places, and this being one of them, right here, this page 126, where the Alter Rebbe says, he calls upon the concept of training your mouth and your voice to speak about Hashem through tefillah and Torah, etc. And you see even here, as he finishes this section of this chapter, he refers back again, so I just want to point out for the record, because sometimes you'll hear some way, Chabad's not into saying loud the words and singing loud, and it's all about meditation and the head, and I'm not into that. I like to articulate, and to whether it's like in Karlin Stolin, we scream very loud. Other Hasidic groups shake a lot. The different variations, right? But it's interesting that when you learn Tanya, this is not the only place. You'll see slight, not slight, it's open, it's written clearly here, but the dagush, the emphasis is more on the hisbonenus than the hergel bepiv v'koiloi. That's true. But to say that the Balatanya, the Alter Rebbe, didn't understand the value of that too, he did. And therefore, at certain times, like over here, when he's talking about these different levels of love and for God, he calls upon us to do that to help us feel more the love. So it's a very interesting approach. That although normally the approach throughout Tanya's is bonenus, meditation, reflection, right? Here, he's calling upon us to be margil, piv v'liboy, to accustom, to train your mouth. That means to talk it out, to sing it out, to say it out. What do we say? Chaim Zev, we say, kol ma'orer kavana. Kol, sound of davening, learning is ma'orer, especially davening, arouses kavana, focus, right? So what does that mean? That means you should be singing the whole time? Some say yes. The previous Rebbe in the talk in 1945, I think, he says there, he's talking to Chabad Hasidim who are davening with great kavana and for hours, like what they call in Chabad ovdim, right? And they daven with a song. They start singing. So the Frierdiker Rebbe gives them a jab, and he says, "What are you, a malach? You know what song to sing at what time? Who are you to be? You're a little man. You know what?" Now he's not. Obviously, he was talking to Hasidim there, and he knew who he's talking to, and he felt that they were not at that level. But and he's not talking about us who if halavai we should daven with a song. Halavai, you know what I'm saying? He was talking there big Hasidim who thought they were big shots. They know what song to sing or what part of davening to awaken this angel or that angel on this level and that level. So the Frierdiker Rebbe says, you've become a malach. He gives him he wipes them out. All of a sudden you become malachim because the malachim are do shira. That's not what the Alter Rebbe is talking about here. And I've seen Chassidim that they did daven with a niggin. And if you hear their niggin, some of it's online. Like there was a chassid in France, Rabbi Yisrael Noach HaGadol, they called him. He was born in 1883. He never came to the Rebbe in New York. He passed away in 1983. He lived 100 years old. And he was an accountant for the yeshiva in Brunois in France. And he was, from a different planet, a different time. They tell over the chevra who went in the 70s to the yeshiva there that for the first time they brought a recording of the Rebbe. Not probably the 50s and 60s earlier. The reel to reel, right? And he heard the Rebbe's voice, and he started to walk around the reel to reel. He couldn't see where the voice is coming from. He didn't see the. I mean, you're talking about a person, and he wasn't making it up. He was living still in the shtetl, right? And they have a tape. They made a tape without him knowing of him davening, saying each word and singing with a. It is so therapeutic. It is so holy. It is so gewaldig. And that was his regular davening. This wasn't Shabbos. It was during the week. He just davening with a sweetness of voice and niggin, And it's not something you channel. Hey, people, they ask me at Fabrengens, sing this niggin, sing that. You know what I answer them? I'm not a jukebox where you put in 5 cents, you push a button and Dalfin sings a niggin. It don't work that way. I could do it for you, but not for 5 cents. You know what I'm saying? If you want me to perform, hire me to perform, no problem. If you hire me to perform, I'll perform. But if you want a chassid to sing a niggin out of Fabrengen, it doesn't come from sing this now. It doesn't go that way. If you're engrossed in a Fabrengen, and you say a little l'chaim, and you're speaking words of the soul, and you're aroused to... by davening. What?
The same by davening.
Right. Exactly. That's my point. There's no Shivisi Hashem L'negdi Summit. As Moshe, as we've discussed many times, Moshe brought, Now it's time to cry for Rosh Hashanah Kippur. How many times did you cry Rosh Hashanah Kippur? 5 times or 3 times? At what point did you cry? Or you didn't cry? Make sure you make yourself cry today. Before you go to shul, I don't know, take a smell of something or smoke something and start crying. Like, what is going on here? When I was in Marin County, and you guys can relate to this, this was in the mid-'80s, okay? And everyone knows that, what Marin was, as I've told you, the hot tub capital of the United States at that time. Post Berkeley and the counterculture of the 60s and 70s, right? There was a group of people in another city who were from Bali Tshuva, others, and Friday night, this is the first time I heard about it. Unfortunately, today it happens more often. They smoked up before Shabbos so they could be in high and dance l'chadaidi. I remember, I was a sincere guy from...
Now they drink before.
Yeah, now they drink before. I was a sincere guy from the yeshiva, from Lubavitch, from 770. In my days, there was no such a thing. On the contrary, when Shabbos came, you dressed to put on a nice suit, a nice clothing, and you prepared yourself. It was a whole, So this is not what Alter Rebbe means here by singing. We're going to get ourselves stoned now so we can sing by L'chot Doidi. My friend, I don't need that type of singing. I don't want that type of singing. You want to do that, but don't tell me that's L'chot Doidi. That's not L'chot Doidi. L'chot Doidi is, you go into the Karlbach Shul, and I've been there with Yoeli Davins many times, and people, I'm just saying what I see. People are happy, beat, and they dance, and they sing. If it's coming from the heart, kol hakavod. You know what I'm saying? Chevra, we have to stop here, and we will continue in Mitzvah Hashem tomorrow. I don't know if we'll finish it, but we can do anything. Anyone had a question in particular or anything that you wanted to ask me? Okay, anyway, get ready. Yud Shvat is Shabbos. Yes, Moshe.
I just want to say this issue, what Rabbi Dalfin, what you brought up a few minutes ago about training, the whole idea of training. It's interesting. In Chabad, I've always found that that's like it's in a way like almost like a methodology. But you don't see often other places. There's an element of training. I don't know.
Menashe, turn yourself off. Menashe, I can't hear Moshe. Please. You're saying in Chabad you find that training is more applicable than in other systems.
Yeah.
I don't know. It depends. In Chabad, the training is in one style. For example, in Karlin Stolin, they're into shouting. I mean, they train themselves to shout. I'm serious. So I don't know. I'm not so versed to tell you if they have sessions where they train themselves to scream with it. But I've seen them, in their high time, both in Yerushalayim, in Meir Sharim, and here in Borough Park, where they will, go back and gasp for air and then go boom, and they give it out. It seems to me that there's a certain type of training. But it's different. That's what I'm saying, Moshe. You're right. The training that Chabad and the Alter Rebbe is talking about is a very different type of training. I would say it's not so much of an emotional training. It's an intellectual training that leads to an emotionalism. I would say
meditation.
What?
It's meditation.
Yes, but
meditation. Where other Hasidim are not so much into meditation, they're more into other kind of spiritual awakenings. And here it's more of trying to train yourself how to be centered.
Yes.
How to be centered and how to. It's totally different than all, including Karlin. Karlin, it's amazing, but it's not Chabad. It's something else.
Yes.
I think maybe I'm thinking specifically in a way. Maybe I'm thinking specifically about like Chabad. One is trained in a way in Avis Yisrael.
Oh, that's
something. Look at Bachram going out on Mitzrayim.
Okay, that's something else, Moshe. But that's that's true. But that's not. I don't see how it's. What's the connection to what we're learning here about training the voice and the sound after meditation? You're saying a training that in other systems they don't have that? Why? In Lakewood, in Panovich, in the Litvische world, they train the students to steig in the Gemara. So yes, they don't train them to go put tefillin on with Jews or mezuzahs. It's another type of training, but it's a valid training from what they believe is the ikar. So when Chabad, trains the students to go out, absolutely. So I would say that it's a different type of training, but not to belittle. I'm not saying you are doing that, but I'm saying it's not that they just don't feel that this should be an emphasis, and therefore
But I think Moshe what Moshe is saying he's trying to connect. I mean, he'll correct me if I'm wrong. There is a hashkafa, the hashkafa of Chabad, in an example of the Miftzoim and connecting it with his bonanut. There is you don't have that connection.
Okay. If that's what Moshe meant, I'll accept that. I'll accept that. No, I mean, yeah. Hillel?
I just want to make a comment to something you were saying before.
Yes.
About pleasure and so on. That the Tzivah Shalom in this week's parsha, in his mimer on Makos Bechoros,
yes,
says that the whole idea of Makos Bechoros was to uproot the Rosh de Klipa of the highest Klipa of a Klipa, and he further says that that's what gives us the capacity for Kadesh L'chab B'mutar, that the ability to derive pleasure and sanctify our pleasure, that it comes from the koach of uprooting the klipa of Bechoros.
So is the Neshiva Shalom saying that the Bechoros in Mitzrayim is specifically associated with pleasure? Is that what I'm hearing?
Well, that the capacity that the Jewish people have to sanctify ourselves with mutarlach, the things that are permissible, came out of that makkah, in the sense that makkah was a makkah for the Mitzrayim and a refuah for Klal Yisrael, and that's the sense that I understood it.
Right. But what I hear that, but what I'm asking you is, what's the connection between Makkah's Bechoros and Kadeshat Mutalach? What's the intellectual connection between the two?
The way I understand it is that outside of that, before that, or if that didn't happen, that we wouldn't have the ability to bring kedusha into permissible things that bring us pleasure.
I understand. I'm asking. I understand, but why? Why? What's the connection to Makkah's Bechoros?
When he says in the pasuk that says mekadesh li, that
Kadesh li kol Bechor. That pasuk.
Yeah, that.
So he's deriving it from Kadesh li. That's what you're telling me.
Okay, well, and that this idea that that would not have been a kind of accessible avoda.
I hear you. Okay.
And that is, in a certain sense, the highest avoda.
Right. Let me think about it. I hear the point. Have a great day. We'll see everyone tomorrow. Seid gesund. Have a good day. Bye-bye. Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you.